back to the channel. It's your girl Lori, and I want to talk to you about not being available for everything. Now, granted, you know anything that I say to you is always going to pertain to you as well, right? So everybody doesn't have to be available to you either. So it's really important, and I thought I'd give you a really good boundary to go along with it, right? So you know it's going to go into victim mentality. You know, we've all lived in some time or another. We've all lived in a victim mentality, or we're in it right now, or whatever the case may be. You don't have to stay there, number one. But number two, I want to give you a strategy on, let's say, because boundaries are important. Like, boundaries are always for you, and it's always about protecting your peace. So that's why I need you to be very clear that most boundaries are not going to be individualized. Like, this is my boundary at work. This is my boundary at home. This is my boundary for this. Okay. No. But I want to, you know how you have, and you might have been this person, because like I said, I was for, many years. Or just constantly complaining about everything. My childhood, complaining about various things, complaining about things you can't control, the news, like just constantly negative and negative and negative. And so my sister and I only have one sister left. My sister and my brother, my mom and dad, they've all passed. But I have one sister left, and we're vastly different in our political beliefs and stuff like that. And that's fine. And you know, we have established that it's not like, we're not going to sit there. We're not changing anybody's opinion. That's not happening. Zero need to talk about it. So now, granted, that was a mutual boundary for both of us. Sometimes boundaries aren't going to be mutual, right? Because I'm never going to see it from your perspective. You're never going to see it from my perspective. We're cool. Like, that's fine. I can meet you where you are, and I appreciate it. But let's pretend that you have somebody, and maybe it's not politics. Maybe it is. Maybe it's politics. Maybe it's a relationship. Maybe it's Becky at finance at the job. Okay. Here's the thing. When someone, you or anybody, is constantly sitting and complaining, you're going into a victim mentality. Okay. So you need to understand this. It's different than venting. So it's different if you're like, hey, we're having some glasses of wine, we're chilling, how's things going at work? Now I've opened up this dialogue to you. Hey, how are things going to work? I know sometimes this Becky chick gets on your nerves. Now I'm saying I'm available to have this conversation. Okay. But you have to be clear. I might not be available to have that conversation with you tomorrow. Just because I talked about Becky and finance today does not mean I want to hear about Becky and finance every single day of the week. So you have to say things like, hey, you know, like, let's say it is about Becky and finance. Let's say every time you get together with your girlfriend, they're always super negative about work. Oh my gosh, it's so unfair. Oh my God, now we're going into fair and justice. When people start with that, it's so unfair. Life in general is going to be unfair. Is that cool? No. But can you do anything about it? No. So like at work, and it's what I tell people all the time. Let's say, and I'm going to use the work scenario. Let's say at work, this Becky in finance is like really on your nerves. You feel like she's slandering your name. You feel like everybody else is doing less work than you are and all of this stuff. And you are constantly sitting and complaining. And you're like, hey, you know, oh my God, this happened at work again. Okay, I'm not going to sit there and be available for you. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen, because if you have the problem at the job, you leave, you find another job. Don't say you cannot find another job. It might take time, but if you know that you're working on getting another job, then you can at least go, okay, I can tolerate this for a hot minute until I'm going to go get this other job. Okay. So, but if you're not willing to do that and you're like, well, everybody else should change. Well, I'm not going to have that conversation with you. Okay. So if you can't accept somebody to where they are, then I don't have to necessarily hear it, nor do you. Right. And so you could say something, and listen, boundaries aren't fluffy, but you can say, listen, I love you. And, you know, I'm here for you in many other capacities, but I am not available to have the conversation with you about work. I'm just not available to hear it, you know? And so you have to be willing to say that. Now, if you get your feelings hurt, that's you. That's your problem. That's your problem, because you feel entitled that because you feel some kind of way, everybody should be at your beck and call. Hard pass. They should not be at your beck and call. Just because they're your best friend, just because they're your spouse, just because they're your mother, does not give you free reign to just go dump on people, especially when you're not making the change. I see it a lot in my profession. I'm going to be here for you. I'm going to give you the tools. I'm going to fix your crown. I'm going to make sure that but I'm not going to baby you. I'm not going to sit there and be like, oh, you had a hard time at work? Whatever your issue is, whether it be, oh, you know, you feel like everybody's siding with Becky in finance. Well, I mean, what are you going to do about that? And I don't want to have to hear it every single time. Now, let's flip that. let's say it was me, and it was me years ago, but long before I did the studies in human brain and why we do what we do, right? But when I was living in that victim mentality world, that would be my thing. I would just assume, because I was entitled in my brain, because I had a crappy childhood. So I was entitled to dump on you, and you had to be there to hear me. Oh my God, could that be more narcissistic, more manipulative, more gaslighting than anything on the planet? Yeah, it is. So I've been there. I've been on that side. And I've been there where people have, I don't know if I think I said it in a podcast. Years ago, in my early 20s, before I'd started like studying it and doing this as a profession, I had a psychiatrist and a therapist, different, didn't even know each other, but within like 2 days apart go, I'm going to have to disengage from this relationship. And I'm like, then I go into victim mentality. Oh, look at this. I can't even keep a doctor. Doctors abandoned me. Oh my God. Could that be more? No, because, and they were honest. That was a boundary. They said, listen, we have given you tools, or, individually, I have given you tools. I have been here for this. You are not taking the steps. You are not utilizing the tools. So it's a waste of time for you, and it's a waste of time for me. What? What do you mean it's a waste of time? I mean, I was flabbergasted, right? And I was like 23, 24, So I was floored. And so I went to my therapist to complain so she could side with me and say, okay, let me tell you what a terrible doctor this guy is. Oh my God, this doctor sucks so bad. So she's like, okay, what? It's her job. She's listening to me. And I tell her, and she goes, well, it's funny, because I was going to have the same conversation with you today. And I'm like, what, you're abandoning me too? And when I said that, she said, well, this session is over. This session is over. I'm not going to engage in this. And I was like, that's why I'm also very stern, because I know what worked for me. And so I adopted, as I went on and learned more about like the human brain and why we do things, that's how I am with my clients. You don't have to like it. And like, I was so mad. I was mad at both of them, and I was so angry. And I hated them. I thought they were awful doctors and they were terrible. How could you you're a doctor. You're supposed to fix me. No, you're not. No, a doctor's not supposed to fix you. They're supposed to give you tools for you to fix yourself. And I remember it was like a week or two later, and it was like, because at first I was like, I hate them. And I started trying to talk mad crap about them because they didn't go the way I wanted them to. And I did find myself groveling both of them back and say, listen, I hear you. Could you please give me another opportunity? I want to do the work for me. They didn't want me to do it for them. They wanted me to do it for me. And that was that same little doctor who told me I was going to do this as a profession. And I thought he was crazy. Okay. So I'm sharing that bit of information for you because I've been on that side of it. But no one, yes, a therapist, a coach, a doctor, a medical doctor, if you're constantly sitting and complaining, they have the right to distance. It's not benefiting you. It's not benefiting them. It's creating frustrations for the both of you. So it's just like that in real life. A person does not have to be available. Yes, you meet somebody where they are, but protect your peace. So that's a good boundary for you to have. Just because you feel like I need assurance, not everybody needs to walk around assuring you. I'm sorry, they don't. It's not their issue that your car's tire exploded. Well, now everybody doesn't have to bend over backwards because you got a flat tire. That's a you issue. That's not a them issue. Don't make it everybody else's issue. Now you could call and say, hey, listen, I can't come in, or hey, I'm going to be late. This happened to my tire. That's fine. But don't sit here and have this conversation about the tire all week. Oh man, can you believe that happened to my tire? Oh my God, we're still here on Wednesday. This should happen on Monday. So you have to be aware of it. So you have to also protect your peace, but be aware that people are going to protect their peace. So a good boundary is to say, I'm not available for. I mean, there's no second guessing. There's no manipulation. There's no like passive aggressiveness to it. That's direct. It means you respect the person enough to say, hey, listen, I love this relationship. I want to maintain it. This right here, it's you saying this without saying it. Like this right here is straining the relationship, and I'm starting to get resentment towards you. And I can't allow that to happen because I love you too much. You don't have to say that. That's too much. No, you're not doing that. That's coddling. We ain't doing that. But to say you're not available, that's exactly what you're saying, is that I love you and I value our relationship enough and I value you enough. This may hurt your feelings, but I want to restore and say, I want to save and not restore. I want to salvage that relationship as much as we can. So in order to do that, I can't talk to you about this. You don't have to go through all that detail because then that's almost blamey and you don't want to be blamey. So that's why you just say, I'm not available to have that conversation, right? We don't blame other people. It isn't everybody else, it's you, right? So you have to be able to protect your peace. So that's a good boundary for you to have. And I want you to exercise it. So your call to action is, what steps are you going to do to establish the boundaries for yourself, like with somebody, if you know a specific situation, and then check yourself. Always check yourself. Are you expecting these people to be there to hear your dumping ground? And you're doing it in a victim mentality. So hard pass. So yes, it's a great boundary to establish.